Hello there, welcome to Crafting Unedited. My name's Sierra and today we are going to talk about how to use Infusible Ink markers on wood. So Infusible Ink markers, they look like... I lost them. Just kidding. They blended in over there. So this is what Infusible Ink markers look like. You can get markers, pens, gel pens. I think that they have some glitter ones now. Maybe, don't quote me on that, but I do know that there are markers and pens. And they come in all sorts of colors. I just bought the basic pack with the general colors in it to kind of experiment and see what they were all about. Wasn't sure on them yet, so I wanted to give them a try and not go splurging on all of them. Now I kind of want to splurge on all of them, but that's besides the point. We'll get there. So this is the pack that I purchased from Cricut. They had a good sale going on, so I had to get it. They're actually still running that sale. It's 30% off of all materials, which is pretty sweet. All right, so I used these on a piece of real solid untreated wood. I had a little extra piece from a sign that I did previously, so I wanted to kind of play with it. It can't be really used for anything else, so I went ahead and decided to experiment on it. Now, I kind of would have been sad if it really turned out cool and worked really well, but as you can see, it did not. So we'll get to that in a second. So these are the markers that I used, and this is the result that I got. You can see, so first I tried it on this side and it's upside right. So with the way that this one turned out, you can see where it's kind of shadowed up at the top and very, very light. It looks kind of really weird. And then it gets a little tiny bit better down here, but not much better. The reason why it's a little weird up here and a little less weird down here is the wood is actually not flat. It kind of does a little dip. You can see it more so on this side, right here where it goes down. And so what that did is it caused the press to not get an even flat press. So this part right here was just kind of hovering over rather than flat onto the surface. So something to note when I go into how I accomplished this fail is make sure that whatever you're pressing on your material, your product, is completely flat, as well as your pressing surface. I have a heat press, so the surface is pretty darn flat. I mean, you can't get any more flat than that. But if you're using like an easy press or just a general iron, which I don't recommend doing, but make sure that the surface that you are pressing onto is flat. All right, so then I decided to go ahead and give it another try on the other side using the same transfer. Didn't really expect many results because you're only supposed to press once and done. But for giggles, I decided to do it anyway. Doesn't hurt to try, right? So this is the result from the second press. And again, it's just very, very light in all of the places. And basically what happened was the wood couldn't absorb the ink, so it just kind of sat there. Granted, it's on there. It's not coming off. You can't undo it. So it's on there, but you can definitely see that it is much lighter than when I used the Infusible Ink transfer sheets on these Cricut coasters. Much more vibrant and bright and detailed. So it's just Cricut has these blanks for a reason. You can get them anywhere else as well, as long as you look for something that is a sublimation blank. Polyester, ceramic coasters, things like that. Coffee mugs, any of the canvas bags should work as long as it's got a good mix of polyester in it. It'll work really well. Now, you're not limited to those specific blanks. Continue and subscribe to my channel to see what other fun blanks that I have tried. But They are the ones that work the best and the easiest, and that's primarily because that's what the ink is meant to be used on. So, now let's talk about the process of how I obtained this wood. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. This wood transfer. So what I did was I used my Cricut and I used Design Space. I uploaded the image and I used the Cricut machine to draw out a transfer onto a plain piece of laser copy paper, because that's what I had and that's what they said to use. So that's what I used. Not cardstock, not anything else, just good old-fashioned copy paper. So there we go. I used my light grip mat for the copy paper, and when it was time to, I got my image uploaded and designed, and then I went to make it, and I pressed mirror your images for any of these Infusible ink transfers. All of them have to be mirrored. They are going on something, and you don't want them to look like that. You don't want them to be backwards, in other words. So you want to make sure that you're mirroring whatever you decide to transfer onto. So plain old copy paper, and that's with all of the markers. Doesn't matter. Use a plain piece of copy paper. Even if you really cool thing about these, get off topic for a second, is you can freehand draw onto a piece of copy paper and press it onto something. Granted, you want to make sure that you freehand draw backwards, so it could be a little tricky, but you can draw whatever you want onto a piece of copy paper and transfer it onto a sublimation blank, and it's pretty cool. So if you're an artist, these are really, really neat because you can hand draw whatever the heck you want to make. It's pretty sweet. All right, so back onto how to do this. So copy paper, Design Space, make it, mirror the image. Mirror the image. I repeat that because I typically forget on an everyday basis. Mirror your image and then send it through, let it draw it out. It'll prompt you to change the colors of the markers. And then from there, you'll take it out and you can either just randomly cut out the area like I did. I just use scissors, cut it out. You don't have to, but because it was so small, I decided to do that anyway. Or you can create a shape behind the image and have the Cricut cut it, or you can just leave it. I mean, it's not going to transfer onto the thing because it's just a piece of copy paper. So totally up to you and how you want to do that, but you don't have to cut it out. Now, I used, because I didn't have any heat resistance tape because it was on its way, I used an old HTV transfer mask and just stuck it on top to kind of stick it into place, which could have affected my result because it gave it an extra barrier. I used this and then a piece of butcher paper, which you should use as well. So when I pressed it, I put this on top of this with a piece of butcher paper right on top onto my press. Had my press at 400 degrees, 400, and I pressed for 30 seconds. You should do less, but because it was a piece of real wood and it was super thick, wanted to give it a little bit of extra time, so I did 30 seconds. General timing is 15 to 20 for these Infusible ink transfers or markers, so keep that in mind if you're pressing something a bit thinner, but that is a big chunk of wood, so I wanted to press it a little longer. It didn't hurt anything. So 400 degrees, 30 seconds for the thicker piece, 15 seconds for anything else. And then when you're done, you lift the press. I turn mine off because I don't like having it that hot for that long. Worst case, if I needed it again, I would turn it back on. But I turn it off and move the swing arm out of the way. And I just let it sit for about 2 to 3 minutes and I go do something else. And then when it's all nice and cool, then I remove the transfer and I remove my finished product. Never, ever, ever, ever remove it immediately. Reason being is, as you can see on this one especially, not all of the ink transferred off onto that wood. And because it's a marker, it's not going to. So you want to make sure that when you lift it, you're not moving the image any, and you're going to create like a marbling effect or shadowing effect. So when you lift it, when you lift the press as it is, if you don't have your transfer taped down well enough, you're already going to have some smearing. So make sure that it's taped down really well. Lift that press up gently and walk away. Let it cool down completely, because if not, then the wet ink, which you just pressed, and that's how it became hot or wet. I don't like the other word that you're thinking of. So that ink is still damp. There's another replacement word for it. So when you move it around, it's going to kind of shift anywhere else. You know, like if you're writing with a gel pen and your hand smears it, same concept. So just lift it, walk away, give it 2 to 3 minutes. I know you're anxious. I was too. Let it do its thing and then go back to it. That's that. When you're all done, lift it up and you should have a awesome product like those coasters. Or, I mean, this is still pretty cool. Can't really use it for anything, but it's still kind of cool. So I know that there's a few other videos out there on how to transfer onto wood with these Infusible Ink products. But those, all I've seen is that manufactured wood and some MDF, maybe some chipboard, stuff like that. I did do a chipboard video, so make sure that you stay tuned. I'll show you how to do that as well. All right, so that, my friends, is how you transfer, or you use Infusible Ink markers on real solid wood. So subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Have you tried Infusible Ink on wood or anything else that you wouldn't necessarily think to try it on? Let me know. I want to know so that I can try it. I'm excited. I love these markers and I love the Infusible Ink. Want to see what all I can ink up. It's like putting a little tattoo on something. It's so fun. Though isn't all HTV or vinyl like putting a little tattoo on something. Anyways, so subscribe, hit the bell if you want to see when I'm on. Tuesday and Thursday is typically when I have a video posted, so keep a watch out for those days. And until next time, we'll see you later.